one should have to trade a lifetime of memories for a few lines of AI output. Imagine giving a massive faceless tech company your personal financial data, your personal memories, and your personal thoughts just to be able to use its AI.
It definitely is a real threat. I think it's just a matter of time. Nobody really cares about sharing personal user data until Cambridge Analytica got exposed. AI is very powerful. It's smart. It's a couple of harnesses away from replacing a lot of people's jobs.
I have Matthew Wang on the base show today, a genius who's worked at NASA, Google, 2 Sigma. And now he's building Open Gradient to make sure that he gets this AI from the big tech companies and put it back in your hands. Let's get into it. Matthew, welcome to the base show.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to dive more into what we've been working on, as well as a lot of the things we've already done. And, I think the mission that we have today is extremely important, especially since AI is rapidly expanding its footprint in all of our daily lives. And again, super excited to be here.
I actually, want to start off by digging into your resume because frankly, you make us all look like some bunch of lazy people, right? You've been at NASA, you've been at Google, and you're a quant at 2 Sigma. And for most people, that's like the golden handcuff. That's like the ideal dream, right? Where you're making good financial returns or income, and you have good financial security. And I guess my question here is like, what is that psychological shift that happens in a person's brain to make them be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go from having the safety at all these top-notch companies to build a crypto AI startup from scratch. How does that play out?
Yeah, I think there are kind of two dimensions to this that were, I guess, very important for me personally. The first one being the more logistical side of things, which is I think the opportunities will continue to exist regardless of what I do. I can go experiment and build things I'm passionate about to solve problems that, again, I also care deeply about. And, those jobs will always be there, right? Like, Google, NASA, Facebook, 2 Sigma are not going anywhere. And I think secondly, for me, it was, I really was passionate about tackling something that I wanted to have a direct impact on. Anyone working at these companies, especially in quant finance, will realize that, hey, you might be working with data on a very large scale. You might be working on very, exciting intellectual problems. But at the end of the day, as at a quant fund, you're building models to help, your company make money, right? It doesn't necessarily create an impact on the world as we see it, the way that an AI startup like Open Gradient would. And that's what, motivated me to take the plunge. And we're building technology that, in my opinion, today is going to directly shape the way people interact with AI in the future. Like you had mentioned earlier, the way people, use their data, the way people interact with AI, the way AI makes critical decisions, every day. That's all going to be determined by what we build today.
I mean, it's very scary to be honest, right? I mean, we dump information that we perhaps sometimes don't even second think whether we should be dumping into these LLMs, not to realize what this can be putting us into different threats or maybe expose us into different wild west at some point in the future, right? But Matthew, tell me, what is Open Gradient, right? So how do you explain this to a layman who's perhaps using ChatGPT day in, day out?
Yeah, so Open Gradient, the easiest way I would explain it is we build infrastructure. So it's a network that makes AI verifiable. So what exactly does it mean to make AI verifiable? If I send you $10 on the Ethereum blockchain, it is a transaction that is, public and on the blockchain where people can go to the Explorer and see that this address A sent address B 10 USDC and it was validated at a certain time within a certain block. We want to do the same thing for AI, where people can verify that the correct program is running, that the correct data was fed into the correct program or model to generate the correct output. And the real downstream impact of this is that people can now, they're able to use this auditability and traceability of their compute to show that the correct, compute was done, right? And also that their data was kept private, that their data was not stored or sent somewhere else onto some other server. And this is incredibly important for AI today because we are trusting AI with more and more of our data, with more and more critical decisions. And as such, we want to ensure that it is doing the right thing for us to best serve our interest.
Interesting. And when you say this, like, are people at today's age of time when they're using data and the sort of data points that you guys are seeing right now, when you look at a percentage, are people even aware, or let's say, is this even a threat that people even consider real or not?
It definitely is a real threat. I think, have we seen an instance where there has been an exploit or a big problem where large amounts of user data has been, exposed? Not yet, but I think it's just a matter of time. And we've kind of seen similar trends happen before in the past where nobody cares about end-to-end message encryption until, one company gets, exposed for it. Nobody really cares about sharing personal user data until, Cambridge Analytica got exposed,
or
with
Epstein
Facebook and all
files.
that. or other files for that matter. But there have already been small cases of this, right? As an example, Cursor, which is an AI IDE, they were actually caught using Chinese AI models when the coding agents started reasoning in Chinese, and these were things that weren't, communicated directly with consumers, right? Didn't know that their code would be exposed to Chinese LLMs. On top of that, people also, there have been people have questioned, OpenAI, Anthropic. Hey, where's my data being stored? What about, like, is this data potentially vulnerable? And they have actually come out and said that, hey, your data is stored with us, and we have some security for it. But if the government were to subpoena us and ask for your records, we would be under federal law to hand that over, right? And we think that people should own their own data and own their rights to own data, should not be exposed, by these companies if they wanted to. And ultimately, I think the foundational infrastructure for facilitating that kind of personal data ownership is being built at Open Gradient.
I guess this is the right time to ask this. You have this incredible quote that I want to read back to you. You said, "No one should have to trade a lifetime of memories for a few lines of AI output."
Yeah, it's kind of like a soundbite, to be honest, but I do think it's incredibly important because people every day now, their lives are increasingly digitized, right? Your identity is on, YouTube, your personal data is on Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, Twitter, and all of that data is potentially, it's all scattered out there on the internet and potentially being monetized by AI companies. We think it's incredibly important for you to be able to take that data and actually use it without necessarily giving AI companies access to it. And again, I can dive into how we do this, but we've built products such as MemSync where people can aggregate their own digital footprint and plug it into AI and still have it be secure.
Yeah, that's one of the questions I actually wanted to dive deeper into. But a quick question before that is like, I'm obviously assuming and of course understand here that this is entirely decentralized, right? Especially with the ethos of Web3. Now, we've also heard this a couple of times, and I think the whole drama that we had with Tensor very recently about, are they actually decentralized, right? Are all these so-called AI infrastructure that they call them decentralized, is decentralization of these sort of infrastructures, and especially what you're building, a myth?
I wouldn't necessarily pose it as a myth. I think it's a mission where I think, again, most of these networks, they start out, of course, being developed by a team or, a company, and then they gradually decentralize, right? As people, realize how important the mission is, or as people come in, provide compute for incentives, they gradually decentralize. And that's kind of what we are trying to do too, as well, right? With our imminent launch of the OPG token next week, which is to use that as an incentive for compute providers to come in to provide compute to run nodes on our network, which will ultimately improve decentralization as well as the security guarantees that decentralization brings.
Exciting times. I guess we're finally reaching that milestone where day one resets all over again with the token launch. I guess we're what, T minus 3 or 4 days from now. Uh,
Yeah.
by the time this podcast would have been launched, we should have been live. But how does all of that feel? Of coming from a point where this was at inception, and now you're reaching this with a massive community that's actually backing you guys up.
It feels good. It's very exciting for sure. I think there are both pros and cons to it. The pros being, I think this allows us to kind of unlock and enable the next step for development, which is now that we have this token, we can incentivize compute, we can incentivize model development, application development, and on top of that, we can use that to pay the compute providers to create a flywheel economy directly within our ecosystem. The cons are, I would say, of course, it's very stressful. It's a lot of negotiations, a lot of paperwork, and the team has been all over the place trying to manage this and get a hold of it. And so far, we're doing a great job, but still, for sure, I would say we are trying our best to make this launch as successful as we can.
I understand you're on the road right now, in Seoul, Korea, just making sure that you have the final touches to the paperwork, the community on ground, and to make this a massive success.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been good. We've been, in Seoul as well as a couple other cities before this, just to get things, ready and meeting people in person and getting to meet the community with events that we host. Actually, has been quite a delightful experience as well.
Tell us some let's say, tell us some of these traction or achievements that you guys have made in the past couple of months or years since you guys have started building the community.
Yeah, so some good highlights. I would say personally, we had started the Model Hub, which is a decentralized model repository similar to Hugging Face, but built on decentralized infrastructure and Rails. Are now the biggest decentralized model repository ever to exist, with I think north of 4,000 models. A lot of the models are directly contributed by our community. I think the team contributed maybe like 15 out of the 4,000 models. We also have partner protocols contributing models. So, as an example, Sentient, Flock, Filecoin, Repo all have contributed their models onto our network. A lot of indie developers, community members have participated in datathons and hackathons we've hosted and contributed all sorts of different DeFi, machine learning, and AI models. We have, consumer applications like BitQuant that have amassed hundreds of thousands slash millions of users and inferences across the network, and of course all of that kind of grew organically over time. And initially, we kind of launched these into the public, and kind of seeing that community grow with us as we continue to ship features has been quite a rewarding experience.
That's amazing. I guess that's truly one of the most beautiful highlight one founder can say is having a strong community back the vision mission, but also have contributions that are actively developing and maturing the actual foundation or product in itself. Going back a little bit to the token, Matthew, I just want to really break it down for an average Joe who may or may not be in crypto, um, may now be educated that he is or he or she is exposed to this, let's call it threat of having their data exposed in the AI world. How does he actually use or utilize OPG or Open Gradient in being able to contribute, but also protect himself?
Yeah, I think usage of the infrastructure versus the token, they're kind of like, you don't necessarily need to buy the token to get protection. So I can maybe like dive a little bit deeper into that. But the first side of things, which is how do we get protection? How do we ensure that verifiable AI is as impactful as it can be? What we really kind of foresee this being is kind of like an HTTPS standard. So, when the internet moved from HTTP to HTTPS, people didn't necessarily like know, like today many non-technical people don't know the difference. We want to create a gold standard similar to HTTPS for AI, right? We think that there should be compliance as well as security standards that enable some level of systematic surveillance into how these people are running their software. So we need to be able to check that these people are using, verifiable, or sorry, it needs to be verifiable so we can view that these people are not storing people's data or stealing people's data, and that a lot of this is, verified through infrastructure similar to ours, or directly through the Open Gradient network. And from the user side of things, you should just be able to use applications and be able to see some kind of green check mark, and it should just say, hey, this has been validated. We validated the T attestations, and we can confirm that your data is secure and computed within these TEEs. And if you want to check, you can go into this block explorer and actually view the attestations yourself. So that's kind of how we foresee users having protection of, through Open Gradient's infrastructure, which is us working with applications and AI agent developers directly to build this in as a first-class citizen feature. I think when it comes to the token, we are basically using this token to kind of bootstrap this network effect, right? It's
Right.
not it's not just verifiable computing infrastructure. We need to create models that people want to use. We need to create bring in compute providers to run nodes for gradual decentralization and more. So this will help bootstrap that network effect.
Beautiful. This also kind of highlights the how beautiful it is to kind of use the Rails or blockchain in incentivizing people and stakeholders within this entire flywheel engine that you guys have created.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking to definitely use that to grow as much as we can and hit GTM hard. So this way, again, we can work with applications to make this, an increasing reality for everyone.
Matthew, you've been very vocal that AI belongs to users, not a handful of massive tech companies. But I mean, big tech companies have billions of dollars and all of these GPUs, and we can almost kind of say like it's monopolized within these five or massive 10 companies. How does an average everyday builder um, fight to fight against that monopoly?
I think I think it's going to be through the creation of compliance and standards and having people push back. So, as an example, so I was actually at Facebook for this when it happened, but Messenger used to be, not encrypted, or a lot of messaging platforms are, still unencrypted today. But of course, you see a couple scandals happen, and you gradually see people speak out, and they're like, "Hey, shouldn't there be some kind of end-to-end encryption? I don't want my personal data to be to be leaked and exposed potentially if there's some kind of vulnerability or a hack." So I think what's going to happen here is very similar, where initially people might not understand, hey, what does confidential compute, what does verifiable compute have to do with me? There's going to be some kind of hack or exploit. People have all of their conversations and personal data exposed. And then that's probably going to trigger a lot of backlash, and people will then ask for these gradual compliance standards to be implemented. Of course, we're trying our best to make sure that catastrophe doesn't happen beforehand, but it is, of course, I think, in my opinion, I think it's likely. But these big companies, they don't currently have an inherent incentive to build these solutions into their products, but we think it will eventually come around.
If it's a matter of when, actually. And I guess a lot of your role is to really kind of educate the mass users of what's happening or what is going to happen, and perhaps how to circle around that whole potential threat or downfall that we could potentially see in the future.
Yeah, I think it's that, and in addition, there are a lot of utility benefits that you get from verifiable compute as well, right? Not just making sure that your data is secure, but as an example, if I were to run a business and I said, "Hey, I have an AI agent, you can pay it, X dollars per million tokens, and it will generate a research report for you." Think about it. I can just charge you that money, and then instead of using Opus, I can use a cheaper model, right, to generate a shittier report or a report of lower quality. And you would have no idea, right? You'd pay me the amount, and I would be able to cheat you. And as inference demand ramps up, like that's such an easy way to pocket an extra 30% off your margins for if you run some kind of AI powered service, right? Verifiable AI also guards against this, right? Where you can now verify, hey, was the correct model used? Was the correct data fed into the correct program to generate this output? And that verifiability gives you guarantee that, the final output you get was actually generated the way you intended it to.
Now that's a real use case that I can relate to, actually. And of course, you know, I guess a lot of people that have been wipe coding or using ChatGPT or Claude day in day out can kind of understand it. Where do they kind of verify their AI results now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like a very real use case. And honestly, people have already speculated about this. They're like, hey, Anthropic might be quantizing their models, or like they might be like downgrading their models to cheap out before they roll out the new models. There's like already real speculation about these kind of things, but people can't actually verify it.
Matthew, tell me the backstory. When did this aha moment come inside this entire journey of you switching between your top-notch corporate journey, and of course, how did you come around forming this masterclass team?
Actually started when I kind of got into crypto, was excited by DeFi, but I looked at all the models and sophisticated infrastructure we were building in traditional finance, and looked at DeFi and felt that DeFi was very, very simplistic and a little bit primitive. And I wanted to kind of build models to make DeFi and Web3 smarter, right? The Web3 apps today still lag Web2 in terms of sophistication. But then I realized there wasn't actually a secure way to run AR ML models in a way that was cryptographically secure, right? You would have to rely on oracles, right? You have to like run something off chain and then post it on chain, which creates trust assumptions, and there's a attack surface here. So I decided I'm going to build machine learning models and also infrastructure to help make Web3 apps smarter. And that was when I started building open ingredients. I built machine learning models. I got a research grant from Uniswap to build ML models into their V4 hooks to reduce impermanent loss for LPs. And in simulation, we saw that simple ML models can reduce impermanent loss by up to 16-70% annually. And that was when I was realized, oh my God, there is actually a huge opportunity to bring AI and ML models securely into Web3 apps.
What year was this?
This was end of 2023.
Okay.
And I left my job, met my co-founder Adam, who was previously an AI tech lead at Palantir. We started building on Open Ingredients full time in 2024.
Wow. I mean, to think about it, of course, time in crypto 1 year feels like a decade right now. But when you put the builder mode on and you just look at the timeline, you guys have achieved like incredible amount of attraction, or let's say even the traction and highlights that you just mentioned just now. Also, to mention to all of our friends watching this, you guys have built some amazing results, but also it truly shows the work with the community, but also the investors that you guys have onboarded, right? So tell us a little bit more about who's backing you.
Yeah, so I mean, I think investors, of course, like have been a great support network for us all this time. We're very proud and very happy to be backed by A16Z Crypto, Coinbase Ventures. We have great angels, including, of course, Ilya, the co-founder of Transformer Architectures and the co-founder of Near. We have Sandeep, co-founder of Polygon, and a couple other high impact angels as well. And ultimately, like these angels as well as VCs have been very supportive in our mission and kind of have been there for us since day one. Definitely very appreciative of them, and they're part of the reason why we're here.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. I guess you guys have kind of nailed all the sorts of checkboxes to ensure that you have a strong foundation. And of course, Open Gradient has been moving incredibly fast, like you mentioned. You've hosted over 2,000 models, done million of inferences, and right now everyone in the space is talking about the token, as we have seen on the timeline, because I think you guys have opened up for airdrop eligibility, and of course token launch that's happening very soon. What does the next 12 months for you look like, Matthew? What does that entire march towards that expansion of the Open Gradient ecosystem look like?
Yeah, for us, launching the token is actually next week, and that enables a lot of new development initiatives internally for us because now we, like you had mentioned earlier, can use those token incentives to incentivize gradual decentralization with more compute nodes coming online. We can use that to incentivize model R&D for people to build models that people want to use. We can also use that token to reward the compute providers for providing, inference securely, and also, and more importantly, actually secure the inference, right? So if we have nodes on our network that generate bad proofs or compute attestations and proofs that can't be validated by the rest of the network, they will get slashed, right? And that gives us the guarantee that the compute that you get when you use Open Gradient is secured by these measures. So ultimately, it's kind of upgrading us from a test net with a great proof of concept into a production ready mainnet that's ready to serve millions of users with verifiable compute.
Right. And I think the timing couldn't have been better with everything that we're seeing around with the AI rise and agentic moves in the rails, and of course, privacy as one of the key highlights as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think now is absolutely a very, very ripe and exciting time to be launching this stuff, especially since AI is very, very rapidly expanding into critical decision making for businesses as well as for people. That like verifiability and security is of most importance, and we're very excited to be working on this.
I know Open Gradient has been moving incredibly fast. You've hosted over 2,000 models, done million of inferences, and right now everyone in the space is talking about OPG. I'm also pretty sure that you mentioned previously that the community has been very actively contributing to the ecosystem. What are some of the exciting use cases or models that you have seen that excites you the most of what's to come from the community members that have been contributing?
Yeah, like I mentioned, we have hosted all sorts of different models from all sorts of different people. And when it comes to the models, I think what makes our model hub the most unique is that there is no other repository that exists out there where we can find such a nice and wide assortment of AI and ML models used specifically for crypto and Web3 purposes. So a couple of them include, as an example, one of our partners, Pond. They developed a Sybil detection AI model using graph neural networks. So it's a model that is able to, look at an address on chain and be able to flag based off of some probability and confidence interval whether that address is likely a real authentic user or whether it's a Sybil address. And that's useful for things such as airdrop farming and detecting filtering out farmers. We also have models that are more used in DeFi that we and I personally actually have contributed. So things like spot forecasting, which is forecasting the price of an asset and its returns, X minutes or hours into the future. Volatility forecasting, which is used for forecasting how volatile an asset will be. Dynamic fee, setting machine learning models, which is used in DeFi protocols like AMMs in order to set the fee based off of volatility in order to reduce impermanent loss. And of course, lastly, we have some more exciting and interesting Web3 use cases of models. Some of them include Filecoin's use of machine learning models to detect how well the miners are performing and whether they're doing their job correctly. There are also models for detecting the health of the network for their storage networks. The models we have really span, I would say, large variety of different use cases. And we have hosted models for also some other partners that have, essentially performed reinforcement learning on existing LLMs. So this is like Flock, this is Sentient, where they have their own LLMs that are, RL designed for crypto use cases. And, I would say we are very, very much honed in on continuing to ship more models that people can use on top of our infrastructure. And we are excited to kind of see, the community really come to life, especially closer to TG when people have just been, contributing all sorts of different models to our repository.
Beautiful, man. I think, like I said it before as well, I'm going to say it again. Nothing better than having an active community that's not just here for when token, when TGE, when price up, but actually contributing and building something substantial, like the use cases that you've just mentioned.
Absolutely.
Matthew, I've out of all the partners, and of course, you have a stacked team, of investors, advisors. Recently saw this tweet from Virtuals that you guys decided to partner up with Virtuals for your launch. Shed some light on the decision making on how and where you guys were looking to partner up with, and how did Virtuals come around?
Yeah, so I've actually known the team there for quite a while before they kind of,
Blew up.
came into, before they kind of really got popular, and been following what they've been building. And of course, there are some logistical synergies. As an example, we're both active on the base network. We've both deployed things there. Our token will be there as well. So the synergies made sense. Initially from the get-go, we were both in the same community. I would say there are two things we're very excited about here. Firstly, is of course the fact that they have this agentic commerce protocol, right? Agents paying each other for work. And what we think is going to really unlock and enable more effective agent commerce, like I had mentioned previously, is the fact that you can actually verify what an agent is doing and whether it's saying or whether it's doing what exactly it's saying, right? Whether the product that you get back matches what they advertise. With humans, of course, it's a little bit simple because we have identities and reputations attached to our identities. With agents, you need some way of verifying this to know that, that the correct stuff is being done. And with agentic commerce, that's where verifiability would come in, right? Where when agents purchase things from each other, purchase services, they can systematically and automatically verify that the correct thing was being done by the agent providing the service. And we're excited to provide that verifiable intelligence layer for agentic commerce in order to make it, more effective, more trustworthy, and to reduce the, attack and exploitation surface area where people can maybe, cheat out on agent services that they provide. Secondly, as of course, we're going through the Titan launch program. So we will be our token on the base network will be going through their either launch program, which is pretty exciting. That will be an exciting where people within their existing community will be able to partake in both the upside as well as kind of be active in our community where they can kind of witness how we continue to work with virtuals and also be able to trade the token and so on and so forth. So yeah, very, very excited to be working with the virtuals team, world class for sure, and excited to see this continue to grow.
I will say though that the virtuals team has that fight in them, that the resistance to keep pushing and pivoting and even figuring out what that sort of going beyond product market fit, but now being at the forefront of innovation, with their multiple, I'd say, pivots that they've done over the past couple of years. It's amazing to see their traction. And you mentioned the Titan launch program. I think that was, when I was doing my research, I felt that was pretty unique. So I'm like you said, it's one of the the best ways to kind of intertwine communities. And of course, what better possibility when the community has an opportunity to partake in the upside of the token as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think like the virtuals team they are also kind of one of the leaders in the space building agentic commerce, right? They have a very active network of different agents. They have provided services. And I think, speaking to the team, one of their worries is, hey, like we have all these agents, people building all sorts of kind of agents that can provide utility and services towards other agents. But today, what's really missing isn't the agentic kind of participation or agents. What's really missing is, ensuring that the quality of the services provided by agents is top notch. And, of course, that's where we come in. And we think that by bridging this gap, by ensuring that agents are providing top notch services, that they can actually, be, held accountable for the things that they do, that will gradually increase the quality of the productivity and services within virtuals. And that's what's going to take virtuals and the agentic kind of economy mainstream, where people will gradually start using these services more and more and more. They don't even know necessarily that it's being run by agents, in the background under the hood. They just need to pay for these services and, trust and verify through our technology that they will get the expected outcome that is of the top most quality.
I have a question, Matthew. Because you're so deep into the AI industry, and of course, you're building within the industry, how legit do you see agentic commerce, right? I've met multiple people that are building within AI that still kind of think like it's overhyped narrative, right? And sometimes a lot of people say it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. When do you, or let's say, what do you see when this timeline kind of materializes?
I think those, the skeptical kind of criticisms and kind of, those thoughts are completely valid, by the way. Agentic commerce in its state today is still extremely primitive and relatively nascent. The reason I say that is because a lot of these agents are more kind of proof of concept, kind of hack together agents. The quality of the services are still not top notch, right? If you want a service done, if you want something, built, it's still better to use the polished kind of applications built by, companies, right? Or startups that have spent and dedicated all their time and energy into building these, these products. Agentic commerce, I think, is an exciting kind of primitive and rails for how business will be done in the future. I think the missing piece here that we are trying to build actively towards as well is really the quality piece, right? If you want a research report done, I would say probably using deep research on ChatGPT or on Claude probably outperforms like an agent that you could find, online via some like commerce protocol today, just because again, top of the line researchers work at these huge AI companies. But what's exciting about the, agentic commerce is again, not so much the quality of the services today, but the fact that it's so seamless. It's so easy for agents and people, and it's completely permissionless for people to contract services from each other. As I think the quality of the agents and their services provided ramp up, I think it is very natural that will become the natural rails for how people transact. And yeah, it is part of our job to get that quality up, to make sure that agents are providing and verifiably good quality services.
So a bit of a background, of course, I run a marketing agency and we help projects grow in the space. Very recently had a founder who is building payment settlement there for agentic commerce. And a question that he asked me was, how do you market to agents? Right. So when I asked him, what's your major KPI, or like, what are you actually looking for? He's like, yeah, I'm actually looking for a very creative way of how you can market to these end agents that would use our product. So that got me thinking a little bit, right? Because as of today, it's still humans that are control these agents or build these agentic rails and infrastructure. I mean, of course, at some point, there's going to be that whole, social media, the commerce, like the whole infrastructure where agents interact with agents. But that just got me thinking hard, right? And of course, today it's still going after those developers and builders that build these rails. But I can see a future where, we've got to have to clone ourselves and have agents that be able to market to other agents to use this particular product.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of this will be kind of done in an agentic fashion. This is no longer a contrarian take; it's very much a consensus take that the primary consumers of software of the web will be agents, right? People won't be browsing and purchasing things like it will all be agentic. Your interface will purely be a natural language interface where you tell your personal agent, I want this booked, I want this purchased, I want this service. And that agent will go and do it on your behalf. And as such, people are now optimizing for things like AI search optimization, where you want your AI agent to be able to discover services, and on the services side of things, you want AI agents to be able to discover your products, right? And similarly for marketing, yeah, it's interesting that this new angle has emerged, which is how do we market to AI agents as opposed to humans? And people are doing all these like novel kind of innovative ways. As an example, hey, when an AI agent or a bot is visiting my website, show a different type of text. No need for graphics. Right. Just show this text so it can understand immediately through its context what our product does. And yeah, I personally think that is very much how things will operate in the future, just because it is the most efficient. And as AI agents ramp up in terms of intelligence, I think they will be able to understand their users and best serve their interests. And again, that kind of highlights why verifiability is important, right? If I'm trusting my agent to make transactions on my behalf, of amounts I need to pay people, or making trades in my own portfolio, purchasing things that might have a direct impact on my life, you bet that I want this agent to be, doing things correctly, processing the right data, using the right models to best serve my interests.
Open Gradient has positioned itself to be building something massive here. I will say that. There's a lot of use cases. Talking about building, and we've mentioned and highlighted and covered your background. Again, super stacked, Matthew. Respect. Tell us a little bit about your co-founders. The team that's driving this mission, this huge vision of this network of quality, open, verifiable data points for AI. Who are the other co-founders?
Yeah, so I'm very happy to have, honestly, a great team working with me on the daily to kind of work towards this mission as well. I kind of discussed my background briefly. My co-founder was previously an AI tech lead at Palantir, where he led development efforts on their AI platforms product for close to 7 years. I found that to be quite fascinating. He's on most of the patents for their AI agents, and he also has worked personally on a lot of these products that are used in defense and warfare. AI agents can now deploy drones in war. Super interesting stuff, and he's really the house expert on AI infrastructure. We have also team members that have built high performance cloud computing infrastructure at Google, where they led on development efforts for high performance computing, which of course is very applicable to what we do at Open Gradient, specifically since we're doing inference and making that high performance in a decentralized context. Our chief strategy officer was actually an ex-founder himself, where he raised a couple $1 million to build AI agents for DeFi, specifically in market intelligence. So he understands kind of the consumer side very, very well, and he is also a lecturer on AI, former PhD candidate, very deep in the space. So we have kind of expertise coming from all parts of the industry, from crypto, from tech, from AI, and for me, quant finance coming together. And I think, that's what AI is going to look like in the future. I think it's not contained to tech the way something like SaaS was. It's going to really penetrate deeply into every single industry, every single vertical. And unfortunately for some, it's going to replace jobs, and, many job functions will be done, either half automated by AI or entirely. And for us, it's a great opportunity to build and embed verifiability in AI agents that will be doing all these jobs to ensure that job functions done by AI, all the computing done behind the background is secure and verifiable.
Amazing. I think again, kudos to be putting together a dream team. And of course, I absolutely like what you said about in the future, it's not just about having the tech background, but the entire suite of finance, tech, product, and of course, the entire vision of building something that's beyond just the tech. Because at the end of the day, like the whatever you build, whether in AI or not, and that's precisely going out to all those people that are vibe coding today, right? It's not just about building products. It's also about how do you market them? How do you get users? How do you get people to, retain or and again, those one man vibe coders and stuff. I definitely respect, but I guess a good question to see with time is like who of these people will eventually still remain relevant in the next coming few months or years. Matthew, I want to ask you personally though. Some of these AI habits, or let's say the use cases of AI that you use in your personal life, right? So for you, is it ChatGPT or is it OpenAI? Is it Claude? What sort of stacks do you use on a daily life?
Yeah, no, of course, like any other engineer, I just churn and spend the most tokens on coding for sure, since that is just you want to ensure that you use the best model for that. So I actually, yeah, for I think probably like 90% of my token spend is on coding, and I've actually built my own setup that I run locally for this, where I have an orchestrator agent that runs Kimi, that runs Opus 4.6. And I have a couple different agents that do different things, based off of the orchestrator. For coding, it's mostly, Opus as well, or Codex. For some of the writing tasks, I use Kimi K2.5 just because it's much more budget friendly. And it's been great. I've built many different experiments and products. I've also built some models with this that I've used in my own time, and I've shared this on my Twitter. Building some machine learning models I use and that are hosted on the hub today for trading polymarket up down markets. So I would say that's probably most of my token spend. I do really enjoy using MemSync, which is one of our own products, as well as ChatGPT for brainstorming. And I think the future of HCI, like human computer interaction, is going to be AI that deeply understands your identity, who you are, your personality traits, your quirks, and can kind of give you advice, or can give you kind of decision making analysis based off of its understanding of who you are. And that's kind of one of the thesis behind MemSync, which is, hey, we want to build AI that can really learn deeply who you are based off of all the digital footprints, all the information, all the data that it can collect on you. And of course, in a privacy preserving way that is end-to-end encrypted and not stored on some centralized company's servers, I think is, of course, very important here as well.
Of course. I know that's some alpha there, guys. For anyone that's watching this, I think I'll try to link that tweet as well to make sure that people can sort of go there. But Matthew, what would you say are some of the hidden dark truth of some of these threats, rather, that people every day like myself are using ChatGPT and not having themselves being mindful of what can be done? And perhaps what is your suggestion of what they can do? What's the lowest hanging fruit today that they can do to kind of avoid that?
Yeah, well, I'm not necessarily sure if I would kind of qualify these as dark truths, but I think some things that I think are important for the common everyday person. Firstly, I think I don't want to sound like a doomer, but I think like AI is very powerful. It's smart. It's a couple of harnesses away from replacing a lot of people's jobs, and sure, there is some bureaucratic inertia that is protecting some people, but I think eventually, there will be some unemployment caused by AI, and we've already seen some of that. I think the best way to guard against that and to create a moat is, of course, be the person that uses AI to replace other people. So to do that, of course, you have to learn all the tools, be in the top 5%, 10% of using AI. You should have to learn how to increase your productivity personally in whatever vertical you work in with AI. And this way, again, that guarantees that you are the one doing the replacing and not the one being replaced here. I think that is I guess, like dark truth, so to speak, that I think, people don't realize just yet, but will soon come to light. I think secondly would be, people also have to be very careful when using AI, because this has been highlighted by many AI researchers online, which is AI sycophancy. When you talk to an AI, it will say, even if your idea is bad or it's wrong, the AI will a lot of the times be like, hey, that is correct, or that is a great idea, and continue expanding on it. And sometimes the idea is terrible, right? But the AI just like is sycophant and tells you that you're smart, that you're correct. And even, Carpathian, a lot of these like top AI researchers have acknowledged this, that, they are, a victim to this as well. A lot of it does come from, the RL and post training on the LLMs, because people like hearing that they're correct, and through reinforcement and post training, like that gets kind of built and it embedded into the DNA of the model. So I think it's very important to also like, balance your conversations and decision making with AI with a little bit of your own intuition. You can't rely too much on AI, because it can be sycophant and lead you down the wrong paths in certain circumstances.
They make you think like you're the smartest guy, and then you just keep going down their rabbit hole. And the truth is, like, absolutely what you said, people care more about convenience, lesser about privacy. And I guess this is where products and companies like yourself are doing, or will have to continue educating the market, and people like us to understand, like, hey, there's something that you need to be mindful about, and there's something that you can do about it, right? But I guess, Matthew, if you were to name one company that you think is most dangerous in terms of AI centralization, what would that company? Who would that
I
be?
mean, I don't think this is really going to come to us. It's not a surprise, but easily Anthropic, just because I think, well, they have the most powerful model right now, which of course is not released to the public yet, because they cite safety concerns. This is Mythos. For them, I think, I mean, it's kind of crazy the velocity at which they ship at. They are releasing new updates almost every single day or every couple of days now. Like, I have to essentially relaunch and update my Claude,
Every day.
on a daily basis. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, just by nature of the fact that they have the best models, they have the best researchers, and are shipping at the highest velocity, I foresee them essentially capturing a lot more of the market moving forward. And they've released features such as Claude Code Design. They've released features for cybersecurity. They have all these kind of features that will end up front and center with different types of users across a wide variety of different industries and verticals. And just by that nature, when everyone's using this single product, like, they are for sure like subject to the most potential like high value exploits that could really wreak a lot of havoc. It's kind of similar to Facebook, I would say, where literally everyone was on Facebook, let's say like 10 years ago. And of course, with something like a Cambridge Analytica scandal, like, you have tons of data kind of just exposed, and these centralized points of failure are, again, they're the most high risk when it's something that everyone uses.
I think that's a very valid point. We're just having this conversation with a couple of friends as well of how fast Anthropic is shipping. Now, that being said, do you think decentralized AI is actually inevitable? Or is there a real scenario where big tech just wins and we're all coping?
That's a great question. If you look at, I think big tech and decentralization aren't necessarily, mutual exclusive. Because if you look at Google, right, they're launching, I think, Universal Public Ledger. They're launching their own blockchains, right? Stripe is launching Tempo. So a lot of these centralized big companies are realizing that decentralization does bring a lot of benefits, and they're trying to build their own decentralized solutions. So I probably would say what I think would happen in the future is that it's going to be a mix of the two, where some companies are, of course, the labs behind building decentralized, networks, and the decentralized networks and infrastructure will be the thing powering a lot of the compute. And in our case, of course, I think like verifiable AI, computed in a decentralized fashion, is important. We have a lot of companies working on this, including us already. And I think, yeah, that's probably like a hybrid, labs building a decentralized network is probably going to be, the winning solution, in my opinion.
Matthew, given your experience both in TradFi and then eventually AI, now crypto, what's one belief that you had about AI or crypto maybe a year back that you've had to change your thoughts about it?
Great question. So one thing that I was pretty wrong on was I thought that LLM, like model intelligence, would plateau a lot earlier. And I thought that, a lot of the alpha would be in, building tool calls and building, like tools that are effective. So this is kind of like laying chain style kind of agents and tools. But, because, there's a limited amount of data to be trained on in the world. But I guess one thing that I have realized was wrong was the fact that these models actually still have more to go, and there's kind of new inventive ways for improving the quality of model outputs. And you see this with, again, like the new Opus models, right? Mythos, of course, coming out as well. I think for us, that was, for me personally, that was like a little bit of a surprise. Well, it is. I think there are pros and cons to that. I think the pros are, it kind of shows that AI can continue to improve itself at an extremely rapid rate, which is, of course, great for anyone building within AI. You can now leverage smarter models to build services to replace, existing older services that don't have that type of intelligence. I think the cons are the world is moving a little bit too fast, and I think there are attack surface areas that people just haven't realized. As an example, you see all these exploits in Web3 over the past couple of weeks with the huge drift exploit with RIA finance. I think just a couple of days ago, there are just so many different protocols getting exploited left and right. So we do have to be careful as these models get smarter. And I think that in addition, outside of Web3, you have, of course, like cyber security risks with governments and larger entities that are even more at risk. So yeah, that was something that I realized, and very excited to see how much more these LLMs have, when it comes to improvement, or room for improvement. And it's been exciting watching kind of these top labs ship just frontier model after frontier model.
It still amazes me to think of the fact that OpenClaw just kind of launched a couple of months ago. Like, if you think about it, that first tweet, and 6 months ago we saw how things, OpenClaw, and launching your own agent had come around, and ever since then it's just been so much massive, or let's say new innovation, and it's not even been a year. Right. And like you said, I think you're being a little modest here, saying where AI is moving a little bit too fast. I think, yes, that's something that we're all going to eventually cope trying to figure out and keep up to the new innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. Things are just like moving very quickly. And I think, like, again, tying it back to one of our core missions, when things move a little quickly, there tends to be, some sloppy work done here or there. And I think with a lot of, these AI apps and AI agents being shipped out, like, people don't realize that there are just so many verticals of exploitation. And going back to like how software should be built, how software should be, monitored, and of course, like, verified. I think, when it comes to AI, we need some systematic checks in place to ensure that the right programs are running, the right models are being used to generate the right output, because AI is going to be doing a lot in the future. And if we don't have a way to audit what exactly is going on, if everything is just a black box, that becomes very, very dangerous when you start trusting it with critical business decisions and your own personal data.
Absolutely. Matthew, we have a lot of young developers, dreamers, builders watching this today. And if you were to go back and tell your younger self, when you're working at NASA, Google, before raising $1 million, and the development of how AI has come around so fast today, what's one piece of advice you would give these people that are trying to now build within AI and maybe take the path that you took in building billions of dollars worth of a business?
Yeah, I would say intelligence is, and skills and knowledge, a lot of this stuff is rapidly being commoditized with the rise of AI models. You don't need to be an expert in anything, because the AI just, you have at the touch of your fingertips, just knows so much more. So what really matters, I think, here is, agency and building moats that matter, such as relationships, I think are also very important. If you're a young builder, or if I were talking to my younger self, I would just say, have agency, go and build things. You now have, experts on literally anything at the tip of your touch of your fingertips. You go build something, rely on AI to learn, rely on AI to execute, because really, I think agency and just like moving fast on ideas that you have is going to be one of the few only moats when it comes to building products in the future. And yeah, there's no better time, honestly, in history than now to be building. You see middle school, high school students shipping apps that get acquired for millions of dollars. You don't need all that experience and expertise anymore. And that also kind of begs the question, like, well, we went to school for all this like coding stuff, and we learned how to, design, software from the ground up. All of that is useless now, because simple prompt to Anthropic, beats out any knowledge that I might be able to share, and it's crazy.
Absolutely. No, very well said, Matthew. Very well said. I guess you kind of hit the nail on the head as well, with the fact of having one relationship speed of building as being the moat, because literally you wake up one day and AI may, it's the second person may already build what you have, but who you know and the speed of development and reiteration is perhaps the key moving forward as well. And Matthew, a big week ahead of us, right? You have an exciting token launch that's coming. You have been on the ground, with the entire team meeting community members. What's the vibe that you are getting on ground? And perhaps the next few nights are probably going to be very, very hectic and sleepless for you. What's one thing that you're most excited about?
I mean, I'm personally just, leading up to TG, very excited that this token will be able to introduce a lot more features that will be enabled on our infrastructure. So this is like the crypto economic security. This is being able to pay in the tokens for compute spend. This is also kind of being able to use the tokens as incentives for the community for developing models or doing research. That's particularly exciting. I think the vibe that I'm getting, I would say there tend to have been a shift in sentiment. I think a lot of crypto people are now looking at AI, which is great for a product like us, where people are looking at, okay, like what's the next frontier technology that is going to fundamentally change the world. Crypto has already done a lot of that when it comes to cross-border payments, transactions, the way we settle derivatives. Now people are looking at AI very, very actively and saying, hey, how is AI going to transform the world? How can I be part of that wave and be on the frontier of this technology? And people have, been very, very excited to kind of try out things we've built and also talk to us and, explore different ways to work together, just given the nature of what we do. And that's been honestly quite exciting.
Amazing, Matthew. You're truly building at the absolute frontier of technology, and exciting times ahead. And I have learned a lot today, and I'm pretty sure a lot of our viewers here have learned a lot. And of course, looking forward to seeing your development. I would be very keen to follow up another conversation in about 4 to 6 months to see the sort of developments that you guys have achieved. And I'm sure that's going to be amazing. But again, thank you so much, Matthew, for coming on the Base Show, sharing your insights, and we wish you the best of luck with this new day one journey with the TGE, and of course, the continuous builds that you guys are going to be shipping as a team. Thank you so much once again, Matthew.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time as well. Excited to come on here and talk about some of the things we live and breathe. We're personally just, both stressed and also excited about what's to come. I think there's a lot of things to do left, of course. And, as time goes on, we think that there will be a very, very strong case for verifiability in AI. And that's going to be one of the things that will be highlighted, in the years to come. So, once again, thank you so much. Pleasant conversation, and we'd love to do that follow-up.
100%. Thank you guys so much for viewing this once again. I'll be putting Matthew's links below. Please go follow him. Until then, guys, cheers. Signing out.